Is the year 2024. We are heading into the 2024-2025 NBA season. Just a few more weeks to go, but we are entering a new era of basketball. Somebody retired earlier this season. I think it was Gordon Hayward. He retired this all season, and my little brother pointed out to me that Paul George is the only player left in the 2020-10 draft class. So we are literally seeing more and more newer players, more new faces in the NBA each and every year, and we're also seeing our some of our favorite stars, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, their playoff tenures are getting shorter and shorter each and every year. So we're witnessing a new era of basketball. And one thing about the NBA right now, I think it's highly competitive. And I know we talk about that face of the NBA thing all the time. Who's going to be that guy that everybody wants to see once LeBron retires? I still don't think we have a definitive answer just yet, but one thing the NBA do have going for itself is that it's very competitive, and they have a bunch of young talent, a bunch of players in the NBA that can fill some shoes. They have a lot of entertaining players in the league, and when it comes to the young talent and the best young talent in the NBA, it's really hard for me to choose the best young core because it is so many organizations that have some great things going with the young pieces that they have, like the San Antonio Spurs, who just got Victor Wembanyama in last year's NBA draft. The New Orleans Pelicans still have Zion Williamson, another quote-unquote generational player who's just 24 years of age. We look at the Utah Jazz, who has some interesting young pieces, the Detroit Pistons, and the two teams that it came down to for me when it came to the best young core, the best collection of young talent in the NBA, it came down to the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Houston Rockets. And I know a lot of people think that the Oklahoma City Thunder are the definitive answer because they are the youngest team in NBA history. They're the youngest team in NBA history to win a playoff series, and the youngest team in NBA history to be a first seed in either the Eastern or the Western Conference. So as some young dogs, they're coming off a terrific season. And I know this might sound contradictory here. For my best young core, I'm not going with the Oklahoma City Thunder, and I think they're outstanding. One of my favorite teams to watch in the NBA, but I think I'm going to have to go with the Houston Rockets, and there's a multitude of reasons. And if anybody feel like it's the Oklahoma City Thunder, I don't blame them at all. And if you feel that way, I don't disagree with you. I think it's more of a preference thing, but I think in the future, I think both of these teams are going to be some heavyweights in the Western Conference, and for my personal preference, I'm kind of leaning towards the Houston Rockets. We look at the Houston Rockets last season with the addition of Fred VanVleet and the addition of Dillon Brooks. Those are two older guys. They're not super old, but they're older than the players on the Houston Rockets, so it did bring their average age up a little bit. And the Houston Rockets, they dropped down on that list of the youngest teams in the NBA, but the previous years they were at the top of that list in terms of the youngest teams in the NBA. And I look at the season for the Houston Rockets last year. It wasn't the season that the Oklahoma City Thunder had, but I think it was fairly impressive given how their last few seasons went, being at the bottom of the NBA in the win column, being at the bottom of the NBA when it came to defensive rating. We seen the Houston Rockets last year. They took huge leaps in both of those categories. They got to a 500 record, something that they hadn't done since the last time James Harden was a Houston Rocket, which was the 2019-2020 season. A little bit of the next season, but he was gone in January. And then we look at how great they were defensively under Coach Ime Udoka and the additions of Fred VanVleet and Dillon Brooks. It helped them become a much better defensive team, being ranked 10th. I believe they finished 9th in the league when it came to defensive rating. And I know those achievements right there don't sound so crazy in itself, but when we take in circumstances and we look at all the injuries that the Houston Rockets did sustain last season, Alperen Sengun missing pivotal time, he showcased that he was one of the best young players in the NBA. I see a lot of redrafting lists of the year that he was drafted, the 2021 NBA draft. They have Alperen Sengun being a top 5 draft pick. Fred VanVleet, when he went down, the Houston Rockets, if I'm not mistaken, they had a guaranteed spot in the playoffs. And when he went down for his, I wouldn't say it was a long term, but it also wasn't a short term injury. The Houston Rockets struggled without their point guard and their floor general on the court. And also Tari Eason, Cam Whitmore, those guys weren't as consistent as you wanted them to be out on the court either. And when we see those two guys out on the court, they impact winning in so many different ways. So I know the season that they had wasn't the Oklahoma City Thunders, but it was still an impressive season for the Houston Rockets. And then another thing that I'm looking at is just the collection of young talent that the Houston Rockets have. What they've been able to do in the draft since the 2021 NBA draft has been nothing short of spectacular. And what makes the Houston Rockets their draft picks so special is that they were able to get some really great talent with their initial draft picks, their lottery picks, their top 5 picks, their top 3 picks, and then later in the first round they were able to find even better players. And I think the biggest gem that they stumbled across was Cam Whitmore. If they can get a healthy career out of Cam Whitmore, it'll be one of the best draft picks in NBA history, because just from seeing him in his 2 years in summer league and then his rookie year in the NBA, Cam Whitmore is a stud, and he plays with a chip on his shoulder. You can see when a guy's playing with a chip on his shoulder, and Cam Whitmore has that. So the Houston Rockets, they have a great collection of young talent, and we look at the top of this team. I think the two best players right now, talent-wise, and the two guys that's proved that is Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun. And I think both of these guys have the potential to be superstars. And when I say superstars, I'm talking about top 10 players in the NBA, and I'm not exaggerating that. I see that in both of these players. I see it in Alperen Sengun. A lot of people see it in Alperen Sengun. He's been getting a lot of comparisons to Nikola Jokic, but Alperen Sengun, he had a terrific season last year. He had some stretches where he was straight up dominant. I believe there was one stretch where Sengun averaged 25 plus points, 12 plus rebounds, and 6 plus assists. And then also he had a game against Victor Wembanyama, a guy that was first team all defense as a rookie. He had a game against Victor Wembanyama where Wemby couldn't do nothing with him. I believe he dropped 40 plus points. Can't remember how many rebounds he had, but he had a monstrous night against one of the best defensive fives in the NBA. And then the same thing with Jalen Green. Jalen Green, he showcased us towards the end of the season that he also has that superstar potential within him, that superstar potential that we've been waiting to see. And we've seen the flashes from Jalen Green over these last couple of years, but the flash that we saw last year was a little bit different. We saw him do it in meaningful basketball. We saw him do it with the other valuable pieces around him. We saw him do it with a great head coach in Ime Udoka, and we saw him do it with a balance of getting buckets within the system, quick buckets, efficient buckets, and we also just seen him get some buckets where him and his other 4 teammates, they just relied purely on his basketball skill for him to get a bucket. And then from that, I can't remember, I should have looked it up, but I can't remember that span. I want to say it was like a 9-game span where Jalen Green, where he was the best player in the NBA statistically, and what we were seeing with our eyes. He was ultra efficient, 50+% from the field, super high 40s from the 3-point line, and he just looked really good. And I think Jalen Green, I think he had the clip of the year last season. One of my favorite clips. I love the way they make the edits to it on TikTok. But he dropped the guy, he shot the 3, and before the 3 went in, he turned around and he was celebrating. Just thinking about it, pause right here. Just thinking about it is giving me chills through my body. But I think these two guys have superstar potential for the Houston Rockets' sake. If one of these guys hit their superstar potential, spectacular. If both of these guys hit their superstar potential, it'll be an amazing thing for the Houston Rockets. And what's so exciting is that both of these guys have showcased it, and this could happen next year for the Houston Rockets, where Jalen Green and Alperen Sengun takes another step further and become all-stars in their NBA career. This would be spectacular for the Houston Rockets. And what you gotta love for Houston is that the young talent it's past those two guys. They have so many other players that have really high ceilings, but the floor for these guys are really high as well. You look at a guy like Jabari Smith Jr., who's 6'11", can guard 1 through 5, or I should say 1 through 4, but he can become a player that can consistently guard that 5 spot because he did play the 5 spot last year when Al Princeton went down. So he's used to banging with bigger bodies, pausing in. But you have a guy in Jabari Smith Jr., and we look at him, and let's say he never does reach his superstar potential. That player we know he could be, get to any spot, rise up for the mid-range, consistently put the ball on the floor, and get to different spots. Let's just say he never becomes that player. The Houston Rockets still have a 6'11", 4'5" man that can elitely stretch the floor, and you can put him in so many different positions defensively, whether it's to guard the ball, whether it's to be the weak side help, the strong side help, or be a man guarding the post. That's what Jabari Smith Jr., that's what his floor is in the NBA. So if he doesn't reach his fullest potential, the Houston Rockets still have a really good role player in him. We look at a guy who was drafted with Jabari Smith Jr., Tari Eason. I think Tari Eason, from what I've seen, he has star potential written all over him. His ability to rebound the basketball, both offensively and defensively, it's like his hands are a vacuum cleaner. He knows how to get a knack on the ball. He's another elite defender, just like Jabari Smith Jr. Can put him in every situation on the defensive side of the ball. You can bring him to double team, to trap. He gets a lot of steals in the passing lanes. He gets a lot of blocks, and he secures the rebounds. Tari Eason is a jack of all trades defensively, and then offensively, you gotta love him because he does all the little things to make his life easy scoring the basketball. He cuts hard. He runs the floor hard on the fast breaks. He makes the right passes, and he just takes good, high, efficient shots. And there was some time last season where Tari Eason was the leading scorer on the Houston Rockets, leading them to win. So he definitely has something within him. One of my personal favorite players on the Houston Rockets, Tari Eason, and then also Amen Thompson. Amen Thompson is another special talent on this team, and I'm telling you, if Amen Thompson develops a jump shot where he can shoot 35% from the three-point line, that is going to be very deadly. But another thing, Amen Thompson, he's another player where that ceiling is just super high. And what I was so impressed with Amen Thompson last year is that his role as a rookie changed so much last season, but he was able to be effective in all of those roles. He was able to be effective if Coach Ime Udoka asked him to be the full-time ball handler or the full-time point guard. We seen Amen Thompson go out and get a triple-double last season. We also seen Amen Thompson go out, get 10, 12, 14 rebounds, being that de facto center, setting screens, being in the dunker spot, being a great defender. We saw him as a rookie be an elite role player coming right into the NBA, but he also has that potential because he's supremely athletic. He has a great handle on the ball. He can finish around the rim, and if he gets any type of consistent outside jumper, he's going to be a very special player for years to come in the NBA. We look at Cam Whitmore. Cam Whitmore, same thing, elite potential. Another supreme athlete for the Houston Rockets. He's 230 pounds, all muscle. He can fly up and down the court. He can be just like everybody else we've named so far. Can pit in every situation defensively, put him on the ball. Great help defender. Cam Whitmore gets so many steals that leads to easy transition, fast break dunks. And then also he can rebound the basketball. So I love Cam Whitmore, and like we said earlier in the video, he really does carry that chip on his shoulder, and he seems like he plays with like he has something to prove. And so we have Cam Whitmore, and then we look at this year's draft. This guy seems like he's going to be that missing piece for the Houston Rockets, and that's Reed Sheppard. And Reed Sheppard, he became very popular this offseason, and he was already a pretty popular basketball player playing at the University of Kentucky, but he became a little bit more popular with his performance in the Summer League. He was playing on the show, and we saw him playing alongside Rob Dillingham at the University of Kentucky, so we saw him more off the ball, but In the summer league, he was in more of a full-time point guard role, and he showed the ability to read the floor. He showed the ability to play in a two-man game. He showed patience. He had the crab dribble to his game. He showcased his floater, and then the most importantly, he showcased his three-point shooting ability. The ability we saw at Kentucky, where he shot over 50% from the three-point line. He was able to carry that over into the summer league, knocking down shots off the dribble, knocking down shots off the catch, and knocking down shots from deep. So the Houston Rockets, and I think they're in a situation, or I think the NBA is in a situation where you can have an abundance of talent, and if you have the right coach and you have the right players with the right mindset, you can take that abundance of talent and you can be a very dangerous NBA team. We just saw it with the Boston Celtics. I don't think nobody realized how impressive it is for the Boston Celtics to have a team like that and for them to be as cohesive as they was. Pretty impressive. You have to give a lot of credit to those guys and Coach Joe Mazzulla. So the Houston Rockets, I think they're in the same sort of situation. They have all of this talent, and what better guy to have to home it all in than Coach Ime Udoka. So I think they have a lot going for them. And like I said, I would not be mad if you picked the Oklahoma City Thunder for the best young core in the NBA. That trio of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jalen Williams, and Chet Holmgren, they're so young, they're just going to continue to get better and better. But my thinking is that the Houston Rockets, they have two potential superstars with Alperen Sengun and Jalen Green, and then they have all those other young talented guys right beneath them that has already shown that they can be effective role players in the NBA. So that's what I want to talk about with you guys today. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, comment down below who you think has the best young core in the NBA, and then subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, man, and that's curtains.